building a particle accelerator. I'm going to go fairly quickly through this so I can get to a presentation. So, about me, I love physics, specifically astrophysics and theoretical physics. So basically anything that involves, you ever heard of a wormhole, that kind of stuff. You know, things that are maybe physically feasible, but are not known if it's possible. I love 3D art and animation. I have over 1,000 hours in Blender, a free open source 3D modeling program. That is basically what I do with my free time. I am very, very stubborn. I love video games, and I have quite the affinity for electronics, as you might be able to tell. So, these are pictures that I found on my phone that best describe me. This is a picture of Pikachu that I edited in Pixel by Pixel. This was a picture of me dressing up for my Halloween costume in 2023. I was Luigi that year. This is my dog, Wally. He's kind of a weirdo. And these are some pictures of the moon I took. They're really nice, but they don't look that great on the projector. So, what is this? A particle accelerator accelerates the subatomic particles like electrons using electromagnetism mainly, because that's the easiest one to use. It's not like you can really use gravity for this or whatever. So there are three main types: cyclotron, linear, and synchrotron. If you've ever got, raise your hand if you've ever gotten an X-ray. That used a linear particle accelerator, which is what this is. A synchrotron is like CERN, or the Large Hadron Collider, and a cyclotron was, it's kind of weird. It's like this, I don't know how to really describe it, so I'm not going to bother. Mine's a linear accelerator, also known as a LINAC, and this technology is over 100 years old, being discovered first in the 1800s. So, yeah, we've had particle accelerators for over a century. It can move electrons, the part of atoms that you interact with when touching something, basically. To very fast speeds relative to a human, at least. It uses high voltage passed wirelessly between a cathode, which is the negative end, and an anode, the positive end, in a chamber with no air in it. The device known as cathode ray tube, or CRT, is over 100 years old and well documented, and thus most associated dangers are easy to prevent. There is a very, very low, if there is a very, very low amount of air and the voltage exceeds 20,000 volts, it can generate high energy X-rays. Now these, I'm only using one of them, but there's two on the table. These are the high voltage transformers. They turn 5 volts into I don't know how many volts. It said 400,000 on Amazon, but that's probably not true. But why this? Well, it's challenging. It's something I've never done before, and I'm beginning to delve into quantum physics and plan to pursue the topic in college, which is, So it makes a very bright light when air is pulled out of the chamber. We'll see that in a few minutes. So as for planning, back almost exactly 1 year ago, I came up with this idea for my senior project. I began planning during the last weeks of school. So I had an NCY that I had to do competency recovery for. And during that time is when I really began focusing on developing this project. So I outlined the basic concepts for what I wanted by doing a number of quick searches and creating a design based on what I found. So initially, my project was supposed to look like this. This is a synchrotron. Basically, it consists of a particle accelerator with a secondary loop. So this is a LINAC, or a linear accelerator, basically the cathode ray tube, and this is a secondary accelerator. Each of these little markings represents electromagnets with an output. So basically, it accelerates particles through there and traps them, or accelerates them further using these electromagnets in a specific orientation. Now, I could not find any documentation on whether or not it's supposed to automatically detect when a particle gets to here and flip the orientation in order for it to accelerate through air and not just kind of bounce in the middle or bounce off. It needs to be pulled forward, and then it needs to flip its voltage and push outwards. The way I was going to do that was these four were going to be wired like say positive, and these four were going to be negative, and then I'd flip the voltage between them and just do it at an accelerating rate. And I eventually hoped that that would just work. Obviously, I actually never ended up getting to that stage of the project, but because the CRT is a particle accelerator, I just ended up doing that. So these were, yeah, that was the diagram of that. This was one of my earliest drawings of particle accelerator. So research. I began research in June of 2024, watched numerous videos on YouTube of people constructing these on their own, and I ended my research a few months prior to assembly due to a lack of being able to find any new knowledge. Again, it's very basic, actually. There's not much to building these other than trial and error. So I learned how to circumvent the dangers of the project as well. So consulting for dangers. In June of 2024, I consulted Mr. Salgi about my idea for a project. I specifically brought up the potential dangers of it, including radiation, handling of high voltages, and even a risk of implosion. Because it's under a vacuum, the pressure of the air around it could crush it, like that submarine a few years ago. I already planned on using an implosion-resistant materials, and from everything that I have read, radiation is only a concern over 20,000 volts in an extreme vacuum. This is 20 times higher than that, but supposedly. He confirmed that this was indeed true, helping to instill a little confidence in me and others around me. So this was a list of dangers and hazards that I compiled and explanations for how to circumvent them that I presented to Mr. Chisokas and another one of the science teachers that sadly I forgot their name. So my main inspiration, I could not embed that YouTube video, so there is a link here that I'll, if you want to scan it to watch the video, you can, or save it for later. It was a really well done one and very simple and straightforward. Moving on, the assembly, which is the hard part and frustrating part, which is why I changed the font here. So the first nightmare. Despite my abundance of research into the project, my attempts to source materials were hard. I spent somewhere around 2 hours at Lowe's trying to find parts that fit together to form a seal. Eventually I was able to find what I needed to build the first iteration. So yeah, thanks to my mom for helping fund that and enduring that with me. That was frustrating. I think it was more than 2 hours, but I'm not sure. This was a picture of an earlier trip to Lowe's where I measured out different sizes. I did not take any pictures on my second trip to Lowe's because I was too busy trying to find parts that fit together. Excitement.
So if I hit safety switch.
This is the power supply, so this is not the accelerator itself. This is. That's what's powering it. So if you disconnect that, that turns into basically a giant taser.
There we go. All works, it doesn't heat up.
So yeah, it doesn't heat up. I assembled the power supply the day after getting my materials from for the vacuum chamber from Lowe's. To my surprise, it worked first try. So yeah, I literally cut a, can't see it here, but I cut a USB cable and I stripped the wires and connected it to alligator clips and a snap circuit piece. So disappointment. Upon testing my completed project, I was met with disappointment as the cathode array was not visible. You could not see it, but it worked because I could feel the static electricity coming off of it, which is something that it does. In fact, it's probably more powerful than this one here, but this one you can see it. This is the original vacuum chamber. It's about this big, right next to my power, one of my power cables. This was before I think I got the power supply. So problems, I knew my particle accelerator didn't work, or the reason it didn't work was because of an inadequate vacuum. I searched forever trying to find a better way to seal the tube, and eventually I gave up on my initial design and began to work a new one, this time with a smaller volume, which is this particle accelerator right here. It literally is a glass bottle about this big, like, what is that, 1 and 2 inches long, and because of that, it is very, very easy to pull a much more complete vacuum from it and seal it. It actually sealed, and I could not tell because I didn't have a pressure gauge that could attach to what I was using to pull a vacuum from my other one, which is a vacuum cleaner, which is not a good idea. Doesn't work very well. So I couldn't tell if there were any leaks in my old one, or if it even had a great enough vacuum to begin with. So yeah, that kind of sucked. I revised design. My new design used a hand vacuum pump with a pressure gauge built in, as I mentioned before. This is my dad's. He uses it to work on his car, or used it to work on his car. It's an old Mercedes that relies heavily on vacuum pump technology for a lot of its systems, such as the windows, which are pulled down using vacuum, I believe. The new container is glass, unlike my previous one, which was PVC, which offers better structural integrity at the risk of implosion, but because of the size of it, it's not likely to. Aluminum foil is used for the leads to help seal the container, because wires are too thick and have too much space in between them. Final assembly. My final assembly for the presentable CRT took place this morning. I built and designed this before school. My old one, I did not. So literally this entire thing I was doing this on my floor. I didn't want to show up empty-handed, and I didn't want to give up on this yet. My old one, as I said, it wasn't very presentable. So now I'm going to test that. So to do this, I'm going to... I'm sorry, please be quiet. Sorry, but seriously. So for this, I'm going to face away from the projector. All right. So all right. As you can see, this is a ray of electrons. It's very hard to see. I have to keep pumping it because there's a slight leak in it.
You gotta duck down.
No, I don't. What do you?
People can't see.
So, this is a array of electrons. This is not an arc like you'd normally find on a high voltage thing, although it is arcing whenever gas seeps its way in there. This is actually gaining more and more power the longer it is turned on. Just gonna check to make sure it's not heating up. So essentially what's happening is there is electrons are flowing from one end to the other through a vacuum. I honestly don't know exactly how this accelerates the electrons. Again, something I couldn't find much information on, but I mean, it works, so. All right, so back to this. So my outcome for this. So despite the numerous setbacks and many different problems occurring, I was eventually able to make a particle accelerator. Wasn't initially what I wanted. I think if I had been more reasonable, I wouldn't have saved the construction of this till the last 3 days before senior project, which is when I built everything. But that was mainly due to a need to graduate. I have a couple classes I'm taking right now. Well, I passed, but they are needed for graduation, and I am on the 20 credit diploma, which doesn't require a senior project, but I do, however, I did, however, decide to take this out of just sheer, I just wanted to do this. I mean,